Everyone tells you that it's normal that you would feel sleepy, tired, exhausted, nauseous in the first trimester. But what no one told me about was that I will feel guilty about it. Today I'm going to share with you 10 things that no one really told me about the first trimester and some mistakes that I've made, and I hope that they will help you not make the same mistakes on your first trimester. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dawn for Life. If you are new here, my name is Dawn and I make videos on health and fitness, and recently I got pregnant, so it would be a lot of content on health and fitness during pregnancy, and of course to follow would be motherhood and things like that. I also make videos on my life here in Switzerland, so if you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing. I'm naturally a very positive, cheerful person, but in my first trimester I almost felt like I lost myself. Like, what am I? Why am I not cheerful anymore? Why am I so down all the time? And am I really tired or am I lazy? So here I made a huge mistake by pushing myself because I felt like, oh, maybe I'm just lazy. So I went against my body, which is not usually me. I usually listen to my body, but I was just so tired of being tired that I was pushing myself, and I was making sure I do yoga and continue my practice, and I did it pretty intensely. So during my first trimester, I actually had hematoma, and that is bleeding in the uterus. It could have been caused by my intense yoga practice, or it was just there, I don't know. But what I want to say is that in your first trimester, your body is growing something that looks like a jelly bean into something that will have bones and organs, a beating heart. So give yourself some grace to manage the tiredness a little bit better. Make sure you eat nutrient-dense foods, make sure you stay hydrated, and please sleep as much as you can, because it will not last forever. Your ability to sleep so much will not last past the first trimester, unfortunately. Second, this one is not really something that no one tells you about, but it's more of something that people usually ignore or forget. When we're pregnant, we always look for things like creams and oils that might be useful to put on our belly, on our breast. I'm very familiar with this brand called Weleda. So Weleda has this pregnancy oil where you can put on your stomach and your boobs. Because I love that brand, so I just squeeze it and rub it all over my body, and I woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning, scratching everywhere. My nipples were so itchy. I had to wake up to wash off the oil. So even if you know a brand well, make sure you try the product on one small part of your skin. You might still be sensitive to it, especially if you have very, very sensitive skin like I do. Third is the possibility that you might need to change your eating habits. Before I got pregnant, I usually just have a bunch of fruits in the morning, and then I'll have a mid-morning snack, which is usually still a fruit or just a slice of toast or things like that, and then lunchtime. However, because of pregnancy, you need so much more energy to sustain you throughout the day. I noticed that besides fruits, I have to eat some protein in the morning, which leads me to the next thing, which is nauseousness, morning sickness. To combat nauseousness and morning sickness, I found out that eating a lot of small meals and snacks throughout the day helps keep my morning sickness down. I noticed that whenever I go hungry, I become more nauseous. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Get hungry, more nauseous, don't feel like eating, not eating, more hungry, more nauseous. So it's like, the cycle just goes on and on. So make sure to experiment with how it's better for you to deal with morning sickness with food. Because for me, I noticed that instead of having fruit first, which didn't work for my first trimester, first thing in the morning, have something substantial and that keeps my morning sickness at bay. Not always. I still get morning sickness throughout the day, and also when I take prenatal vitamins, which leads me to the next point, which is prenatal vitamins. So depending on your eating habits and things like that, before you get pregnant, it is advisable that you start having some supplements. So I think most of us don't get everything from our food unless you're very careful about it. So I noticed with vitamins, I really have to have a very large meal, especially if iron is one of the supplements in the vitamins. I get really nauseous if I just eat a small meal with the vitamins. So consider that if you are going to take prenatal vitamins. Since we're on the topic of prenatal vitamins, I also want to share that I found out that having a prenatal multivitamin could be good, but apparently the dosages are not as good as when you go for individual vitamins depending on your lifestyle, depending on what you eat. So I highly recommend going on chronometer.com. It's like a site where you can put in what you eat and they kind of calculate your minerals and vitamins needs, like with your weight, whether you're pregnant or not. And then you can check out how you usually eat and what vitamins and minerals might be lacking. And from there, maybe top up with specific minerals and vitamins instead of taking a prenatal vitamin. I still have mine, so I'll still take it on and off. But I also alternate depending on what I'm eating, on how I'm feeling. So I don't actually take them every single day, which I probably should, but I don't know. I just prefer to listen to my body, and if I'm having very nutrient dense foods, then I don't usually take extra. But that's just me. Make sure that you check with your doctor. Here in Switzerland, it's pretty chill. I think back in Malaysia, every doctor will give you like folic acid or a multivitamin. But here, no, I got my own multivitamin. At the hospital, they only ask me if I'm taking folic acid in my first visit. So they're not very like, take your multivitamins. But they do have books to suggest like what to eat and things like that. So the next one, cravings. Of course, you've heard and everyone tells you that it's normal to have cravings during your pregnancy. However, what no one told me about was that the cravings may just be satisfied by having an item or a meal once. So of course I was having all these Asian cravings. Nasi lemak was one of them, and I decided, okay, I'm going to cook it myself. I'm going to make the sambal from scratch. So I made a whole batch thinking that I'm craving this thing. I'm gonna eat it for the next, I don't know how many weeks or months. So I made a lot of these sambal. I put them into jars to freeze them. And then I only ate nasi lemak once. Or maybe I didn't do it good enough that I don't want it anymore. No, but I've done other things as well. And eating it once was enough to satisfy my cravings totally. So I'm thinking maybe it's more an emotional and mental thing instead of a physical need. I don't know. But if you're craving for something and you are planning to make it yourself, just make it enough for 1 to 2 meals. Don't make more, because I have tons of sambal now in the fridge freezing and I don't feel like it anymore. I only had it once. Do not worry about not gaining weight in your first trimester. I was constantly a little bit worried because I don't see a belly and I'm not putting on much weight. Actually, you don't put much weight on the first trimester and it's okay. Maximum you put on is like 1-2 kgs or 4. I don't know, but it's very minimal. It's almost unnoticeable, and that is okay because your baby is very small. So don't worry too much about not gaining weight in your first trimester. I'm sorry for the bells. They just kept going all freaking day. So I'm just gonna continue this video by talking a little bit louder. I've learned that ultrasound is not necessary on every single visit, so if you don't want it, it's totally fine unless there is a reason to further check up on you and your baby. For example, bleeding, spotting, and things that show that it might be a risky pregnancy, then yes, you should have an ultrasound. But if you are feeling good, you don't have bleeding or anything like that, the American Gynecology Obstetrics, how do you pronounce that? I don't know, Society or Association recommends no more than 3 ultrasounds during a pregnancy. So unless absolutely necessary, ultrasound have not been proven to be totally safe yet. Ultrasound apparently has these waves that are really loud. It's like a bullet train shooting through the tunnel. So it's really loud for the baby, and apparently it also produces heat over time to the baby. So it's not totally proven to be safe. It could kill off brain cells or cells in general and cause possibly a miscarriage or deformity. So if you don't want an ultrasound, you don't have to get it unless it's medically called for. Which leads me to my final lesson: your doctor. From my experience, my first doctor, because in the hospital it's always a different doctor and I don't have a fixed gynecologist. On my first appointment, I was only, I think, 7 weeks. That is, the baby is so small, you cannot see it through the abdomen. So they have to do a vaginal, how to say? They have to put it in to see the baby. And I was feeling fine, I wasn't bleeding or anything. And I was sharing a little bit about what I read about ultrasound and my concerns with it. And he was like, oh, if you look on Google, you'll find all kinds of things that scare you. I felt like that was really disrespectful. And like, what do you mean? You assume that I read it on Google? I actually have some books that I've read as well from doctors, medical professionals. And as I mentioned, the Obstetrics Gynecologists Association in America even suggests no more than 3 ultrasounds. So I wasn't comfortable. First of all, it's inserting into my vagina to see the baby. And second of all, I felt like there's no need because I feel fine, I look fine. Of course, through that ultrasound, we found out that I have hematoma, which is the uterus bleeding. But that thing, you can't do much about it. The most you can do is let it heal by itself. So having that is like an extra worry, like emotionally, mentally, it's an extra thing that I feel like was not needed. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that if you don't feel heard by your doctor, if you feel like your doctor is disrespecting your views and not giving you options when it is possible, and you feel any discomfort with your doctor, make sure to change your doctor. So of course I did the first ultrasound and it was unpleasant to say the least, and I felt really uncomfortable because I felt like I was pressured to do it. So okay, even if I'm pressured to do it, I'm still not so upset until at the end of the appointment, the doctor said that you are the boss of your pregnancy. You get to decide what you want or don't want. But at that moment when he suggested ultrasound and I didn't want it, I didn't feel like a boss at all. I felt like I was pressured to do something I didn't want to do and wasn't necessary in my opinion. So I was pretty not happy with the decision. I'm so glad that everything went well, of course, that I still have the baby, but until this day I still feel like it's unnecessary, and I feel like your doctor should at least listen and be open to giving you other options. So if your doctor makes you at any point feel pressured to do something you don't want to do, or you're not given options when things are not an emergency, feel free to move on to another doctor, because how you feel going for these appointments are so important. You have to be comfortable. You don't have to feel like you have to go every time and be pressured to do something you don't want to do. That's it. 10 things that no one really told you about the first trimester. I hope that you've gained something from it, and I'll share more on my pregnancy journey as we go along. If you're a new mama, let me know in the comments below how many weeks you are at. And if you're an experienced veteran mama, leave us some tips or anything you want to share with us down in the comments below. And I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.